After over a decade of development, Blue Origin's big New Glenn rocket is finally on the launch pad for what could be its first flight soon. Some have expressed excitement about the event, holding out hope that BO could one day break SpaceX's monopoly. However, the reality is a bitter pill. Long ago, Elon Musk recognized and warned about serious problems inside the mindset of Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos. However, Jeff's huge ego prevented him from admitting it, and it ended up being a huge stumbling block to the success of his rocket company. Find out everything in today's episode. On the night of November 21st, Blue Origin shared a shocking image. Its long-awaited New Glenn rocket finally went vertical at Launch Complex 36. This is the first time we've ever seen this. And with it all being completed, a launch very soon is expected this month. As the launch date approaches, Blue Origin is increasingly excited to share updates on its rocket launch preparations. On November 13th, the company shared a photo of the two stages of its New Glenn rocket being joined together for the first time in the company's facility, near NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. GS1 meets GS2, the company wrote on X in a post accompanying the photo, in reference to the first GS1 and second GS2 stages of the new rocket. This follows the event on October 30th, when New Glenn's first stage, equipped with 7 BE-4 engines, was rolled out to LC-36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. New Glenn is expected to make its maiden flight sometime in November, taking off from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which is next door to KSC. The flight will carry one of the company's new Blue Ring spacecraft on a National Security Space Launch Certification flight known as Dark Sky 1 and sponsored by the Defense Innovation Unit. According to the original plan, the Dark Sky 1 flight was intended to be on the second New Glenn flight in December, and the NASA Escapade CubeSat mission to Mars was on the New Glenn's first flight, previously scheduled for October 13th. However, NASA later decided not to fuel the two satellites for the mission, as New Glenn was not going to make the tight launch window this fall. That decision helps to avoid potential cost overruns related to the rocket's development. Escapade has been rescheduled for spring 2025, and Blue Origin moved up New Glenn's second flight from December to November. Frankly, the second launch date seems puzzlingly soon, given that launch windows for Mars missions come along just once every 26 months. That's the interval on which Earth and the Red Planet align to allow efficient deep space travel. NASA did not disclose details of that alternative trajectory, including when the spacecraft would reach Mars. A launch would then be outside the traditional Mars launch window that is open this fall, but has not been available again for roughly 2 years. On the same day as BO's rocket going vertical at LC-36, there is a viral photo on X with the title Elon Musk with Jeff Bezos. In the photo, Bezos and Musk are smiling and dining together at a restaurant. This rare photo was taken in 2004 when both men's space exploration ambitions were starting to heat up. While Bezos has yet to publicly address the meeting, Musk described their meeting to Christian Davenport, author of The Space Barons. Musk likened Bezos' rocket work to barking up the wrong tree. He also revealed that SpaceX had tested some of Bezos' ideas and they were all stupid. Elon even added, "I actually did my best to give good advice," which he largely ignored. 20 years later, Musk responded to that old photo by saying, "How time flies." Although both Elon and Jeff are billionaires, their rocket companies started at about the same time. At present, the gap between SpaceX and Blue Origin has become very clear. While Blue Origin has still been struggling with its first orbital rocket, SpaceX has established a monopoly in the rocket industry with its operational Falcon 9 rocket. The vehicle has been in operation for 14 years and made a total of more than 400 launches, a record that has never been broken. The Falcon 9 rocket has become a workhorse for satellite launches, cargo resupply missions to the International Space Station, and crewed space flights. Its reliability and cost-effectiveness have made it the preferred choice for many commercial and government customers. An increasing launch cadence of Falcon 9 has helped the company to grow to 87% of the world's tonnage to orbit, an incredible number. And Elon Musk estimated that SpaceX might exceed 90% of all Earth payload to orbit later this year. Nevertheless, this dominance has raised concerns about a lack of competition in the industry, with some industry experts labeling it a monopoly. For that reason, with the first launch of BO's New Glenn, some hope that SpaceX's monopoly in space exploration will soon be broken. Blue Origin's incompetence compared to SpaceX, though, is a bitter pill for them. A Blue Origin executive said in 2018, as quoted, "Blue is kind of lazy compared to SpaceX," citing the fact that the work environments between the two companies were different. At SpaceX, the very long hours are expected, and the burnout was part of their labor strategy. People are expected to work on vacations or not take them. By contrast, a 40-hour work week is very common in Blue. Another Blue Origin executive even suggested that the company's standard 40-hour work week wouldn't be enough to meet its ambitions. Another executive suggested, "We need to talk about the time and effort personnel are spending to achieve our mission," adding, "If we expect greater than 40 hours, let's clearly communicate that and evaluate personnel based on that guidance." Agreeing with this statement, SpaceX's Musk mentioned that nobody ever changed the world on 40 hours a week, and suggested that people would need to clock around 80 to more than 100 hours a week if they did. So, with a standard 40-hour work week, how can Blue Origin catch up to SpaceX? Yes, Jeff Bezos has used a familiar strategy: copycat. In fact, Blue Origin copied some features of SpaceX's rockets to apply to the development of New Glenn. New Glenn is Blue Origin's heavy-lift booster rocket, which the company plans to use for placing crewed and uncrewed payloads into Earth orbit and beyond. Like SpaceX's Falcon 9, New Glenn is a two-stage booster, with a reusable first stage that, mission planners hope, will land vertically after stage separation. The vehicle consists of a reusable first stage powered by 7 BE-4 engines, which use liquid oxygen and methane for propellant like SpaceX's Raptor rocket engines, and an expendable second stage with 2 BE-3U engines, powered by liquid oxygen and hydrogen. Like Falcon 9, New Glenn's first stage contains engines that can be relit during descent to allow a soft landing, and the rocket has 6 extendable landing legs that deploy just before touchdown. Falcon 9's first stage has 4 legs. Blue Origin also plans for New Glenn to land on a mobile, sea-based platform. SpaceX currently lands their rockets on drone ships. The current New Glenn landing platform ship, Jacqueline, named for Bezos' mother, measures an impressive 115 meters by 45 meters in size, larger than the platforms used by SpaceX. This ship replaces an earlier version of the Blue Origin mobile sea-based landing platform, also named Jacqueline. On the other hand, New Glenn has some notable advantages. It is bigger than Falcon 9. New Glenn, 98 meters in height, is taller than Falcon 9, and with a 7-meter diameter, its payload fairing is bigger than that of SpaceX's rocket. New Glenn can surpass Falcon 9 regarding payload capacity. If all goes as planned, New Glenn will be able to place a 45,360 kilogram payload into Earth orbit and a 6,800 kilogram payload on a trajectory to the Moon. Meanwhile, Falcon 9 full thrust can carry 22,800 kilograms to low Earth orbit. However, I guarantee there is one thing Blue Origin will never be able to beat SpaceX in, and that is relentless rapid evolution. Jeff's team gets obsessed with getting things exactly right, while the Elon Musk team's spirit of not being afraid of risk and failure. This is clearly proven through the development and test of SpaceX's next-generation rocket, Starship. As the largest and most powerful rocket in the world, Starship is promised to launch more than 200 tons to LEO in the third version, 4 times larger than New Glenn. Starship version 3's power is up to 10,000 tons of force, which is much more powerful than New Glenn's 1,743 force. Not only powerful, Starship even promises to become a craze in space travel at an extremely cheap price tag, under $10 million cost per launch. This is thanks to its rapid and fully reusable ability. And in Elon Musk's words, the Super Heavy rocket is planned to return safely after launch and can be relaunched within an hour, a significant achievement for SpaceX. To make it happen, SpaceX developed a unique structure, the Mechazilla, which is dedicated to catching each stage of the Starship rocket. In Starship's Flight 5 in mid-October, SpaceX stunned the whole world by successfully catching the massive booster stage from its Starship rocket in a pair of robotic arms. This is truly a feat that no company has done before and now, and of course including Blue Origin. SpaceX intends to replace all of its current vehicles, Falcon and Dragon, with Starship in 6 to 8 years. At that point, I bet BO's New Glenn would only be online for a short time. Given that, Blue Origin's dream of catching up and beating SpaceX is unlikely to come true. The rivalry between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos became intense in 2013, when Elon Musk's SpaceX won out over Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin to take over the Kennedy Space Center's historic launch pad 39A, the starting point for many space missions. A few years later, they argued again about who was the first to launch a reusable rocket into space. In 2015, Bezos proudly tweeted about the successful launch and landing of the New Shepard rocket, calling it the rarest beast. Musk, however, sarcastically commented below that, "not quite rarest." According to him, SpaceX's Grasshopper rocket had already made 6 such flights in the past 3 years. In a 2016 interview, when asked about competing with other billionaires like Bezos in the rocket industry, Musk shrugged and replied, "Jeff who?" In 2019, Amazon announced plans to launch 3,236 small satellites into space to provide high-speed internet access around the world. This project has many similarities with another project that SpaceX has been implementing since late 2017. They launched rockets carrying Starlink satellites with the ambition of providing global internet coverage. When Musk learned about Amazon's plan, he did not hesitate to tag Bezos in the post and call the Amazon boss a copycat. In 2020, Musk once again called Bezos a copycat, linking to an article about Amazon's announcement of its acquisition of self-driving car startup Zoox. Bezos, for his part, has also made indirect criticisms of Musk's goal of sending humans to Mars. Their companies also compete on a number of fronts, from patents to NASA contracts to access to launch pads. In June 2024, his rocket company, Blue Origin, filed its latest legal action against Elon Musk's SpaceX, this time requesting that an airspace regulator limit the number of launches the Musk-led company can perform in Florida. Although not yet launched the big rocket, New Glenn, Blue Origin is awarded by NASA for lunar cargo delivery missions. According to recent news, along with SpaceX, Blue Origin will receive additional work under their existing contracts to develop landers that will deliver large pieces of equipment and infrastructure to the lunar surface. NASA plans to use cargo versions of Artemis lunar landers under development by Blue Origin and SpaceX to deliver a pressurized rover and surface habitat to the lunar surface in the early 2030s. The U.S. national agency plans for at least 2 delivery missions with large cargo. The agency intends for SpaceX's Starship cargo lander to deliver a pressurized rover to the lunar surface that the Japanese space agency JAXA is developing, no earlier than fiscal year 2032, in support of Artemis 7 and later missions. Blue Moon will deliver a lunar surface habitat no sooner than fiscal year 2033. NASA did not disclose the value of the impending awards to the 2 companies for those missions. NASA said in its statement that it will issue a request for proposals to the 2 companies in early 2025 for those missions, and didn't explain why it announced the planned awards months in advance. The agency also did not disclose why it selected each company for its specific cargo mission. However, having two lunar lander providers with different approaches for crew and cargo landing capability provides mission flexibility, while ensuring a regular cadence of moon landings for continued discovery and scientific opportunity. While NASA revealed in 2023 that it selected Blue Origin for the agency's Artemis 5 mission, and in 2021, it selected SpaceX to build crewed human landing systems, or HLS. It was not until January 2024 that the space agency mentioned that the companies were also working on the cargo landers. The cargo landers are developed based on knowledge gained in developing their human-rated vehicles. The work is being done under options to Blue Origin's HLS contract, awarded in May 2023, and the Option B award to SpaceX in November 2022, which modified the original HLS contract SpaceX won in April 2021. The options, which cover work through a preliminary design review, do not require additional funding beyond the $3.4 billion to Blue Origin and $1.15 billion for SpaceX's Option B. Frankly, NASA's announcement that Blue Origin's lunar lander was selected for both the Artemis 5 HLS contract and cargo delivery mission surprised many people. Compared to SpaceX, over 2 decades, Blue Origin's footprint left in the spaceflight is not significant. BO has so far developed only its single orbital rocket, New Glenn, named after John Glenn, the first American to orbit the Earth. The vehicle was developed before 2013 and was formally announced in 2016, but after many delays, is on track for its first launch before the end of 2024. This is a very long time to develop an orbital rocket, which contrasts with SpaceX. Being founded after BO, Elon Musk's rocket company has now become a de facto monopoly, revolutionizing space launches, vastly decreasing their cost and increasing their reliability. Unlike BO's rockets, SpaceX's rockets are more diverse, including partially reusable rockets like the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, and fully reusable rockets, the Starship rocket under development. Falcon 9 is currently the most popular commercial rocket on the market, with 400 launches to date. This stems from its substantial payload capacity of 17.5 tons in reusable mode and 22.8 tons in expendable mode, whereas the cost per launch is low, at $69.75 million. New Glenn is designed to beat Falcon 9 as this rocket can launch 45 metric tons to LEO, which is double that of SpaceX's workhorse rocket. The cost of a New Glenn launch will be estimated at about $67 million, slightly cheaper than Falcon 9, and its first stage is also reusable. However, SpaceX is one step ahead of its competitors, given that in 2012, presumably around the same time New Glenn was born, Elon Musk first publicly announced plans to develop a rocket surpassing the capabilities of SpaceX's existing Falcon 9. It's called Starship. This mega rocket owns jaw-dropping capabilities, surpassing any rocket that we have seen so far, including BO's New Glenn. This figure shows the maximum mass to standard LEO for the 3 new heavy launchers, as well as the current Atlas V, Delta IV, and Falcon launchers for comparison. As you can see, Starship has the largest payload capacity, followed by New Glenn. The progression from New Glenn to Starship is clear. The SpaceX estimate of the Starship mass performance to LEO was recently updated from 100 plus to 200 plus metric tons, revealing a wider gap with the others. SpaceX also estimates that Starship could launch 250 metric tons for an unspecified price if it is expendable in both stages. The launch performance of heavy launch vehicles to higher orbits, particularly for direct payload insertion into geosynchronous transfer orbit (GTO), is becoming increasingly complex. The 3 new heavy launchers, Vulcan Centaur, New Glenn, and Starship, exhibit varying technical efficiencies in this regard. Vulcan, with 14.5 metric tons into GTO, is the most efficient, 53% of its LEO performance, followed by New Glenn with 13 metric tons, 29% of its LEO performance. Starship is least technically efficient at 14% of its LEO performance, but that places a best-in-class 21 metric tons into GTO. Furthermore, Starship has a dangerous weapon, orbital refueling, which enables it to transport its entire LEO cargo to higher orbits. As the demand for small satellites has increased over the past decade, the engineering challenges associated with fitting spacecraft systems into limited volumes have become more pronounced. While mass limits have relaxed, volume constraints are now a critical factor in satellite design, impacting performance and functionality. Launch companies have now designed payload fairing volumes for their new launchers that align much better with their mass performance. The second figure reveals that the standard Starship payload fairing has an 8-meter outer diameter and the largest usable payload volume of any current or in-development launcher. Meanwhile, the diameter of all the current vehicles is about 4.6 meters, and Vulcan's diameter is 5 meters. New Glenn's is 7 meters. As the space industry evolves, the payload fairing envelope diameter has become a critical factor influencing spacecraft design, particularly for larger and more complex payloads, such as space telescopes. For example, astronomers say Starship could launch a follow-on to the James Webb Space Telescope. This could unshackle the mission from onerous mass and volume constraints, which typically drive up complexity and cost. The increasing focus on volume rather than just mass reflects the growing need for innovative designs that can accommodate advanced technologies within the constraints of launch vehicles. With the full reusability, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is confident of Starship launch prices being less than $10 million all in. And this number would even go down a few $1,000,000 or maybe even as low as $1 million per flight in the future if the flight rate gets high enough. It's clear that this is a dream that will never come true for the partially reusable New Glenn rocket. To make it possible, SpaceX's strategy is very obvious. Starship must get 400 launches during the time between 2025 and 2028. Among that, there would be 25 missions in 2025, even though the rocket has only had 6 test flights in 2024. This was deemed very aspirational but feasible. SpaceX has achieved a similarly high launch rate for its Falcon 9 project. While it took Falcon 9 14 years to pass 400 total launches, SpaceX must shorten that time for Starship, because Artemis 3 is just 2 years away. Many of those 400 flights will be refueling missions supporting the Artemis program to return astronauts to the Moon and Musk's Mars ambitions. According to NASA, SpaceX will need to launch at least 15 Starships to execute the Artemis 3 lunar landing. Starship cannot fly directly to the Moon, but must refuel in Earth orbit before setting out for deep space. The Starship HLS is just one vehicle requiring a single launch, but adding in all the launches needed for the fuel depot takes the total required into the high teens. Given SpaceX's Starship having a distinct advantage over BO's New Glenn, a common question is why the Artemis 5 HLS contract wasn't given to SpaceX instead of Blue Origin. The answer is NASA's goal of diversity in each program. SpaceX wasn't allowed to apply again, no matter how successful the firm was. Like it or not, NASA envisions a diverse, competitive, and commercially supported ecosystem on the Moon. And that means giving more companies the opportunity to participate. As the U.S. Space Agency wrote on its website, adding another human landing system partner to NASA's Artemis program will increase competition, reduce costs to taxpayers, support a regular cadence of lunar landings, further invest in the lunar economy, and help NASA achieve its goals on and around the Moon in preparation for future astronaut missions to Mars. The purpose of this is not to overwhelm one company over the others, but to provide multiple lander and technology options to test which technology works best. If one lander proves more successful than others for any number of reasons, then NASA can focus on using that one more going forward, and any companies that fail can rightfully be weeded out. Moreover, Starship is still an unproven technology. Thus, relying on it and it alone for the entire Artemis program, at least at first, is very risky. It could explain the reason why SpaceX won't even put humans on Starship until hundreds of uncrewed flights are completed, all before their first shot with Artemis 3. In addition, although Blue Origin is notorious for delays in its projects, typically New Glenn at least, Artemis 5 isn't planned until March 2030, and that gives a lot of time for Blue Origin to accomplish big things. For the Artemis 5 mission, NASA's SLS rocket will launch 4 astronauts to lunar orbit aboard the Orion spacecraft. Once Orion docks with Gateway, 2 astronauts will transfer to Blue Origin's human landing system for about a week-long trip to the Moon's South Pole region, where they will conduct science and exploration activities. Artemis 5 is at the intersection of demonstrating NASA's initial lunar exploration capabilities and establishing the foundational systems to support recurring complex missions in lunar orbit and on the surface as part of the agency's Moon-to-Mars exploration approach. SpaceX's Crew 9 mission is one of the most special missions ever for NASA. This is not just a regular astronaut transport mission to the ISS. More than that, it is a rescue mission. Crew 9 launched on September 28th, and unlike previous flights, it sent only 2 astronauts instead of 4. The reason is very simple. The remaining 2 were cut from the flight in order to make room for 2 other NASA astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who are currently stuck at the station without a dedicated ride home. Butch and Suni are victims of NASA's terrible Boeing Crew flight test, which happened from June 6th to September 7th. Technical problems on the Boeing Starliner forced Wilmore and Williams to stay in space for up to 8 months, longer than the originally planned 8 days. The duo now will hitch a ride home with 2 Crew 9 astronauts when Crew 9 departs in February 2025. The 2 NASA astronauts' much longer than expected stay on the ISS has raised concerns about the risks to their health. As you know, the human body is not designed to adapt to the zero-gravity environment of space. When we are on the Earth, we are strongly affected by the force of gravity. We have a small organ called the vestibular organ deep inside our ears, in the inner ear, that sends gravity information to the brain, and the brain uses it to keep our bodies balanced. By contrast, on the ISS, or spacecraft that have flown into space, the force of gravity is much weaker than on the Earth, meaning the information received from the vestibular organs changes. This is thought to confuse the brain, leading to symptoms of space sickness such as headaches, nausea, and vomiting. But this condition does not continue for very long. If you stay for a few days in space, your brain adjusts its interpretation of the vestibular information, so the space sickness goes away. There are individual differences in the severity of space sickness, and some people don't experience it at all. When you return to Earth, you experience the effects of Earth's gravity again, and thus gravity sickness sometimes occurs, with similar symptoms as space sickness. Of course, this is not a serious problem, and astronauts can avoid it by taking a special type of medication, such as intranasal scopolamine, which is a fast-acting nasal spray aimed at preventing motion sickness. In addition, astronauts undergo a 2-week quarantine before launch, known as health stabilization, to minimize the risk of illness. This period involves limited contact with others and is designed to ensure they are not sick or incubating any illnesses when they reach the International Space Station. They also are carefully screened for health issues, and their physical fitness is closely monitored. While NASA has managed to well handle the space sickness matter to protect astronauts' health, recently there is another issue emerged regarding the alarming health condition of Sunita Williams. Amid growing concern about the astronaut's health, recent shocking images show Williams with sunken cheeks and noticeable weight loss, triggered worries about her health as she remained beyond Earth's atmosphere for several months. The images have raised fears about potential nutritional deficiencies, which are a common problem that astronauts face when in space for long periods. Williams later quickly assured the public, saying that she weighs the same as she did at the time of the original launch. It may be that the zero-gravity environment of the space station is impacting the way they look, she said. Things shift around quite a bit, Williams said during a recent video interview. You probably heard of a fluid shift where folks in space, their heads look a little bit bigger because the fluid evens out along the body. The crew's health is regularly monitored by dedicated flight surgeons back on Earth, said Dr. J.D. Polk, NASA's chief health and medical officer. And the astronauts each follow an individual diet and fitness routine to stay healthy while in space, Polk added. The astronauts work out in space for more than 2 hours every day, Wilmore said. Their fitness routines include running, biking, and weightlifting. While in space, the two are also helping to maintain the ISS and working on research projects, including investigations into the effects of zero-gravity environments on the human body. However, those explanations seem not to work. Doctors have said Sunita's gaunt appearance is worrying, adding that the natural stresses of living at a very high altitude are getting to the astronauts' bodies. Maintaining energy balance is difficult in microgravity, where astronauts may experience a negative energy balance due to reduced appetite or changes in metabolism. This can lead to muscle degradation and weakened immune function over time. According to Dr. Barali Swetha, chief dietitian, Gleneagles Aware Hospital, LB Nagar, Hyderabad, typically a male astronaut requires around 2,700 to 3,700 calories daily, while female astronauts may need about 2,000 to 2,700 calories. These needs vary based on body size, mission activities, and individual metabolism, but they generally surpass Earth-based calorie requirements due to the microgravity environment, which increases energy demands on the body, he said. In NASA's view, the ISS has sufficient provisions to support the crew. The space station is well stocked with everything the crew needs, including food, water, clothing, and oxygen. 2 spacecraft carrying 8,200 pounds of food, fuel, supplies, and 3 tons of cargo arrived at the ISS recently, NASA said. Additionally, the SpaceX Dragon cargo capsule has already completed its 31st resupply mission in early November, delivering 6,000 pounds, 2,700 kilograms, of food, equipment, and experiments to the ISS. Despite this reassurance, experts still believe that their fresh food stocks are running low. The New York Post published an article on November 18th revealing that Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore have been feasting on pizza, roast chicken, and even shrimp cocktails, but have very little fresh food in their diets. The pair are chowing down on a variety of food, including breakfast cereal with powdered milk, pizza, shrimp cocktails, roast chicken, and tuna, as medics ensure they are consuming enough calories. However, the diet is limited when it comes to fresh fruit and vegetables, as it takes 3 months for the ISS to get a new supply of fresh food. There's fresh fruit at first, but as the 3 months continue, that goes away, and their fruits and vegetables are packaged or freeze-dried. Williams even admits the diet constraints on the ISS can be hard to manage. Packaged meals and preserved foods may not provide the necessary nutrients over extended time periods. And this brings up valid points about dietary intakes and formats of food supplied to astronauts. If fresh food becomes scarce, the impact on astronauts' health, particularly for those like Williams and fellow astronaut Butch Wilmore, could be more severe than initially anticipated. Similarly, other astronauts often report that food tastes bland in space, which can affect their willingness to eat adequately. The psychological aspects of consumption play significant roles too. The comfort and nutrition of consuming familiar, fresh items can have important ramifications on mood and effectiveness during missions. Reports suggest astronauts with more varied diets, which could include fresh produce, are often found to perform various tasks more effectively. NASA has also realized these challenges, so the national agency has been advancing food production technologies to incorporate more sustainable solutions for the ISS. For example, efforts to build the vegetable production system, known as Veggie, is a space garden residing on the space station. Veggie's purpose is to help NASA study plant growth in microgravity, while adding fresh food to the astronauts' diet and enhancing happiness and well-being in the orbiting laboratory. The Veggie Garden is about the size of a carry-on piece of luggage and typically holds 6 plants. Each plant grows in a pillow filled with a clay-based growth media and fertilizer. The pillows are important to help distribute water, nutrients, and air in a healthy balance around the roots. Otherwise, the roots would either drown in water or be engulfed by air because of the way fluids in space tend to form bubbles. To date, Veggie has successfully grown a variety of plants, including 3 types of lettuce: Chinese cabbage, Mizuna mustard, red Russian kale, and zinnia flowers. The flowers were especially popular with astronaut Scott Kelly, who picked a bouquet and photographed it floating in the cupola against the backdrop of Earth. Some of the plants were harvested and eaten by the crew members, with the remaining samples returned to Earth to be analyzed. One concern was harmful microbes growing on the produce. So far, no harmful contamination has been detected, and the food has been safe and enjoyable for the crew to eat. Anyway, with the current troubles of the astronauts, all eyes are on Boeing and NASA as the culprits of this matter. In 2014, NASA awarded Boeing a $4.2 billion fixed-price contract to build a vehicle to carry astronauts to the International Space Station after the retirement of space shuttles, along with a $2.6 billion contract to SpaceX. The shuttle's retirement in 2011 forced the national agency to rely entirely on the Russian Soyuz capsule to transport astronauts to the ISS for a decade. To get rid of this reliance, they came up with the Commercial Crew Program, which was kicked off by Commercial Crew Development Phase 1 in 2010. Under the program, NASA made a list of requirements for a new transportation system, focusing on safety and low cost. If a company was interested in working with NASA, the company could design, build, and test any type of transportation that would meet NASA's needs. The CCP is the first time the space agency has used this method of working with businesses to fly its astronauts. Boeing, with more than a century of building airplanes and decades as a NASA contractor, was seen as the favorite. But Starliner suffered technical setbacks that caused it to cancel some test launches, fall behind schedule, and go over budget. SpaceX won the race to ferry astronauts to the ISS, which it accomplished in 2020. Now, after a failed crewed test flight and a $1.85 billion loss, Boeing has considered selling its troubled spacecraft, capping over a decade of failures for the program.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
For 14 years, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket-launching Dragon spacecraft into space has truly become an iconic symbol of commercial spaceflight. So, what if one day it disappears and is replaced by launches of a much larger vehicle? In fact, SpaceX has long harbored the intention of using Starship to replace its outdated vehicles, including Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Dragon. So, what is the blueprint? Find out everything in today's episode. Although SpaceX could not catch the Super Heavy booster in the latest flight, they always have many other chances in the next year. One day after Flight 6, the FAA indicated that it would grant SpaceX permission to increase the number of Starship launches in South Texas to 25 per year. This helps to fulfill Elon Musk's plan to have 25 Starship missions in 2025 and 100 in the next few years. More specifically, SpaceX could hit 400 Starship launches over the next 4 years, according to SpaceX's President and Chief Operating Officer, Gwynne Shotwell. So, let's break that number down and give your speculation. I guess there would be 25 missions in 2025, 75 in 2026, 100 in 2027, and 2028, SpaceX should reach 200 Starship launches. So how about you? What is your calculation? Let me know in the comments. For reference, it took Falcon 9 14 years to pass 400 total launches. Therefore, 400 Starship launches during the time between 2025 and 2028 are deemed very aspirational. However, if the dream comes true, SpaceX will go one more step. After 6 or 8 more years, Starship will truly go online and replace all of SpaceX's operational vehicles, including the Falcon rocket and Dragon spacecraft. This was confirmed by SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell at a financial conference on Friday, November 15th. Starship obsoletes Falcon 9 and the Dragon capsule, she said. Now, we are not shutting down Dragon, and we are not shutting down Falcon. We'll be flying that for 6 to 8 more years, but ultimately people are going to want to fly on Starship. It's bigger, it's more comfortable, it will be less expensive, and we will have flown it so many more times. As a fully reusable rocket, Starship is expected to be cheaper and have a higher payload capacity than both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. By not throwing any part of the rocket after launch, Starship's cost per launch will go down significantly. SpaceX aims to achieve a cost per launch that could be as low as $10 million once operational efficiency is maximized. Compared to the $70 million per Falcon 9's launch, this price point will be much more attractive to any customer. In terms of the payload capacity, its next generation, Starship version 2, can carry more than 100 tons of payload to orbit, while the latest version, Starship Block 3, is projected to have a payload capacity exceeding 200 tons. This is something no vehicle has ever gotten before. Bear in mind that Falcon Heavy can carry only 63.8 tons to LEO in expendable mode, and even this number for NASA's Space Launch System rocket is only 130 tons. With such an incredible ability, as Elon Musk calculated, SpaceX might exceed 99% of all Earth payload to orbit only if Starship is launching at a high rate, which is the compulsory requirement to build a city on Mars. Musk explained that building a self-sustaining city on Mars would require at least 1 million tons of equipment, amounting to a cost of over $1 trillion. Musk highlighted the impracticality of this figure, pointing out that it far exceeds the current U.S. GDP of $29 trillion. However, Musk expressed confidence that advancements in rocket technology could bring this cost down by 1,000 times, potentially making the total cost for colonization around $1 trillion. He added that if this could be spread over 40 years, it would translate to less than $25 billion annually, a more feasible number that wouldn't materially affect people's standard of living on Earth. He specifically pointed to SpaceX's Starship, which is designed to achieve the 1,000 times improvement needed to reduce costs. It explains why, although both Falcon and Starship are heavy launch vehicles, Starship is a more complex transport system that includes a reusable booster and a reusable multi-purpose spacecraft. Starship can transport astronauts and cargo not only to low Earth orbit, but also to the Moon, Mars, and back, while Falcon 9 is designed to deliver satellites, manned and cargo ships into orbit, and place payloads on a translunar trajectory. Starship is more suitable for SpaceX's long-term plan to the Mars. And don't forget that Starship can serve the suborbital missions either. This innovative vehicle has the potential to enable rapid point-to-point travel across the globe, dramatically reducing travel times for passengers and cargo alike. The concept of Earth-to-Earth Starship flights involves launching the spacecraft to suborbital altitudes before descending to its destination. While still in development, this technology could have far-reaching implications for business, tourism, and even military operations, not just for civilian missions. The military has also eyeing Starship. As early as 2020, U.S. Transportation Command, USTRANSCOM, was discussing using the giant reusable rocket for transporting cargo or even personnel rapidly around the world. Think about moving the equivalent of a C-17 payload anywhere on the globe in less than an hour. Think about that speed associated with the movement of transportation of cargo and people, former commander of USTRANSCOM General Stephen Lyons said in October 2020. There is a lot of potential here, and I'm really excited about the team that's working with SpaceX on an opportunity, even perhaps as early as 2021, to be conducting a proof of principle. Not just the Falcon rocket, even the last bastion of Falcon 9 flights, crewed missions on the Dragon spacecraft, will end sooner than people realize. To prepare for this, 2 years ago, SpaceX announced that they had begun to shut down Crew Dragon capsule production after assembling a fleet of 4 reusable spacecraft. However, the company later planned to build a 5th and likely final Crew Dragon, namely Crew Dragon C213. It is planned to make its maiden flight in February 2025 to the International Space Station on the SpaceX Crew 10 mission. SpaceX executives initially said 4 Crew Dragon spacecraft would be enough to meet its future needs. Nevertheless, when the firm's manifest thrived, including NASA's decision to add 8 ISS missions to SpaceX's existing commercial crew contract, as well as an exciting commercial human spaceflight manifest. The decision for a 5th Crew Dragon was given to further growth of that manifest. SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft is primarily used for transport missions to the ISS. So when the ISS is retired around 2030, one wonders if Dragon will end at that time. So far, the answer is unclear. But what is certain right now is that the Starship launch system will also come online at that time, so it's mostly likely that Dragon will be canceled simultaneously. On top of Starship, the rocketry world is also eagerly awaiting a new vehicle. Set to make its first launch in 2025, it's Sierra Space's Dream Chaser space plane. Dream Chaser is a shuttle-shaped spacecraft that will send cargo to the International Space Station. It is based on NASA and Soviet designs. Dream Chaser's design was informed by the HL-20, a NASA spacecraft design from the 1980s. Dream Chaser is 9 meters in length. The vehicle carries 5,443 kilograms of cargo, excluding the expendable cargo vehicle, which has 4,536 kilograms of additional capacity to destinations such as low Earth orbit, solo, or to space stations. In the Crew version, its crew capacity is up to 7. Compared to contemporary spacecraft, Sierra Space's vehicle distinguishes itself through its employment of a lifting body design. This innovative approach enables the spacecraft to execute controlled runway landings upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Versatility is a key feature of the Dream Chaser, with its launch site, landing site, vehicle configuration, mission duration, and other characteristics all adjustable to cater to diverse user requirements. Moreover, its reliance on non-toxic fuel and its independence from specialized infrastructure afford it the capability to touch down on aircraft runways virtually anywhere. This versatility offers a myriad of advantages, such as expedited and secure transport of payloads and astronauts returning from space to their respective destinations. Furthermore, the ability to land at various locations across the globe fosters international scientific collaboration. Beyond this, the completion of a human-rated variant of the spacecraft holds profound implications. In the event of a medical emergency necessitating urgent crew evacuation from space, Dream Chaser stands ready to serve as a potentially life-saving resource, even in scenarios demanding emergency landings. The aircraft-like capability of the vehicle ensures the safe return of the crew to the ground, leveraging the widespread availability of runway infrastructure worldwide. For some, the standout advantage of Dream Chaser over Starship in the project lies in its capability for point-to-point travel on Earth, obviating the need for a separate structure akin to Mechazilla. While this holds true to a certain extent, it's crucial to recognize that Dream Chaser pales in comparison to the Space Shuttle Orbiter, being only a quarter of its size. Consequently, its payload capacity is restricted to a modest 5 tons, rendering it suitable primarily for light tonnage transport endeavors. Sierra Nevada Corporation, SNC, stands apart as the sole entity constructing a runway landing spacecraft, diverging from the Apollo-style capsule approach adopted by Boeing's Starliner. Unlike the capsule design, which relies on descent through the atmosphere, Dream Chaser utilizes parachutes and/or rocket engines to facilitate a soft landing. In contrast, Boeing's Starliner typically descends to the ground via parachute, or in emergency scenarios, land on water. Ground landing entails touchdown on any terrain other than a designated runway, encompassing grass fields, dirt strips, water bodies for seaplanes, beaches or other suitable surfaces. This mode of landing necessitates specialized training and procedures due to variable conditions and the absence of established infrastructure compared to traditional runways. In stark contrast, runways serve as meticulously prepared and designated surfaces at airports, specifically engineered for aircraft takeoffs and landings. Typically constructed with asphalt or concrete, runways are outfitted with markings, lighting, and navigational aids to facilitate pilot guidance during landing and takeoff maneuvers. Opting for runway landings ensures a predictable and controlled environment for aircraft operations, mitigating the inherent risks associated with touchdown on unprepared surfaces. On the other hand, despite not splashing down, Dream Chaser is still able to get a gentle trajectory during re-entry at less than 1.5 gravity, or in low G. As the Dream Chaser re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it encounters significant atmospheric drag. This drag slows the spacecraft down, causing it to experience forces that result in deceleration. The spacecraft's design and aerodynamic characteristics are carefully engineered to manage this deceleration safely. As a result, the forces acting upon the crew and payloads will undergo significant reduction, guaranteeing a smoother and more comfortable journey for all on board. This holds particular significance for delicate scientific experiments or sensitive cargo, necessitating meticulous handling and protection during the return journey to Earth. After a long and difficult time, Tenacity, Sierra Space's first Dream Chaser spacecraft, is finally set to launch for the first time in early 2025. Tenacity arrived at Florida's Kennedy Space Center on May 20th. Eventually, the vessel will fly atop a United Launch Alliance ULA Vulcan Centaur launch vehicle. For its first mission, it will carry about 3,850 kilograms to the International Space Station. NASA has contracted with Sierra Space for 7 cargo missions to the space station. In the meantime, Sierra Space is moving forward with its second cargo space plane, Reverence. Based on the limited amount of information, we know that Reverence has been in production, along with its Shooting Star cargo module, at the Dream Factory in Colorado. The manufacture of this vehicle presumably started a few years ago, as its first image was revealed in 2022 with the tweet, "And then there were 2." By then, Reverence's structure was seemingly completed at the basic level, and 2 years later, it added some new components, but not much. Dream Chaser, Reverence, is currently in production, along with its Shooting Star cargo module at our Dream Factory in Colorado. This is the second space plane in our Dream Chaser fleet, which will help carry cargo to the space station. The company itself didn't also deny many challenges in developing Reverence, from finding ways to increase payload capacity to revolutionizing launch processes. It is unclear whether the development of its first version, Tenacity, encountered similar obstacles because it took Tenacity over a decade to get to where it is today, compared to just 6 years for SpaceX's Dragon. As such, there are some concerns about Reverence's launch date, and whether its journey to the launch pad will be as difficult as Tenacity's. However, slowly but surely, at the very least, the Louisville-based company can make sure it prioritizes safety and reliability, instead of repeating NASA's old mistake, go fever. They perhaps want to spend more time for R&D on a new type of heat shield that will be used on the second Dream Chaser, promising to be more advanced and safer. On November 14th, Sierra Space announced a groundbreaking new technology in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Energy's Oak Ridge National Laboratory. In their own words, the breakthrough development enables exterior spacecraft tiles that can withstand the high temperatures of re-entering Earth's atmosphere over multiple frequent missions. This new thermal protection system, TPS, was created to meet the needs of a commercial space industry that is moving at a faster pace than previous generations of spaceflight, and now requires more missions over shorter periods of time. The new technology is developed upon what they had learned from NASA's Space Shuttle program for more than 3 decades. In the past, exterior tiles used on the Space Shuttle were only needed for an average of 5 missions per year. The shuttle also had a number of complications related to its heat shield. So, In the new era where the launch frequency is significantly increased, the heat protection designs for spacecraft must be stronger. Sierra Space's Dream Chaser spaceplane, for instance, is built for a minimum of 15 missions and is contracted with NASA for space station resupply missions with a 9-month reprocessing time. Sierra revealed that the TPS tiles are made of a proprietary composite material that's as strong as carbon fiber, but with the added high-temperature stability of ceramic materials. The composite tiles have low-density thermal protection properties that are vital for insulative protection and stable flight dynamics. Atmospheric re-entry exposes spacecraft to speeds of more than Mach 17, about 13,000 miles per hour or 21,000 kilometers per hour, with temperatures reaching higher than 3,100 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,704 degrees Celsius. While not much information has leaked about this new design, we admit that the material change isn't the only step forward in comparison to the shuttle. To put it simply, let's take a look at the current version TPS of Tenacity. Dream Chaser features around 2,000 tiles in total, equivalent to 1/10 of 20,000 on the shuttle. Dream Chaser tiles are about 10 inches by 10 inches, while those on the shuttle were 6 inches by 6 inches. Despite having a larger surface area, Dream Chaser tiles are lighter weight and surely stronger than those used during the shuttle program, and meet all micrometeoroid orbital debris requirements to ensure safe entry, descent, and runway landings for crewed or cargo missions. Also, Sierra Space is quoted saying, SNC engineers have been able to update the TPS tiles from what was used during NASA's shuttle program, with more innovation, better technology, and utilizing lessons learned. They use more modern manufacturing techniques to increase strength and reduce cost. Talking about the upgraded version, Sierra Space CEO Tom Weiss briefly described, "Our patent-pending thermal protection system is like nothing ever before created and essential to a near future where space travel becomes routine." The reason for this short reveal is that Sierra Space and Oak Ridge National Laboratory have just completed the first development phase of the patent-pending TPS. Afterward, they will enter the next phase with more testing, which includes subjecting the tiles to testing at NASA's Arc Jet Plasma facility, which simulates the conditions of re-entry to Earth from space with heated gas flow. The second phase also explores using advanced manufacturing techniques to lower the costs of TPS production. If it succeeds, we will likely witness this brand new design on Sierra Space's Dream Chaser moving forward, including the second Dream Chaser. Not only Sierra Space, but another company has also developed its TPS based on what they learned from the Space Shuttle program. It is SpaceX. The most notable thing is the similarities between Starship's heat shield and AETB, Advanced Environmental Barrier, a material with a toufy coating, and the addition of molybdenum disilicide, which was crucial in the final years of the Space Shuttle program. Indeed, examining Starship's tiles shows the complex presence, potentially of silica, alumina borosilicate, and aluminum oxide fibers, aligning with AETB. In fact, Elon Musk has mentioned that the tiles are made from silicon and aluminum oxide. On the other hand, structurally, the Space Shuttle's heat shield tiles were known for their outer coating of tetrasilicide and borosilicate glass. Similarly, Starship's heat shield tiles have a distinctive black color. When you observe Starship during re-entry, you'll notice a beautiful blue glow of plasma surrounding it. This indicates that SpaceX likely uses a similar borosilicate coating, as borosilicate burns with a blue flame. Borosilicate is a type of glass containing boron trioxide with a very low thermal expansion coefficient, meaning it's highly resistant to cracking or warping under sudden temperature changes, unlike regular glass. Nevertheless, according to SpaceX's CEO, the heat tiles on NASA's Space Shuttle are not actually a reusable orbital return heat shield in real meaning. With extreme effort, Starship will eventually take reusability to roughly 100%. There are many tough issues to solve with this vehicle, but the biggest remaining problem is making a reusable orbital return heat shield, which has never been done before. The shuttle's heat shield required over 6 months of refurbishment by a large team, so was not reusable by any reasonable definition of the word. Such a long time of refurbishment mainly stems from the shuttle's complex shape, meaning that most of its 24,000 tiles were unique in size and shape, making production, quality control, and refurbishment a logistical nightmare. The orbiter's TPS wasn't a simple system, but a collection of heat-resistant materials, each carefully selected for specific areas of the spacecraft. For instance, reinforced carbon-carbon, RCC, could withstand re-entry temperatures up to 1,260 degrees Celsius, protecting the nose and leading edges. High-temperature reusable surface insulation, HRSI, tiles, made from Li900 silica ceramics with a heat-resistant coating, were used on the underside where temperatures were lower. Felt reusable surface insulation, FRSI, provided protection for areas with temperatures below 371 degrees Celsius. In the past, the Space Shuttle's thermal protection system posed a significant challenge in terms of time and effort. With over 24,000 tiles, each varying in size by about 15 centimeters in length and between 2.5 to 12.7 centimeters in thickness, finding or producing an exact replacement tile for each specific area was incredibly time-consuming. NASA reported that just maintaining the TPS in the Orbiter Processing Facility, OPF, required up to 80,000 labor hours between flights, including QA inspections, repairs, re-waterproofing, and recertifying for flight. In contrast, Starship's TPS aims for a very optimistic turnaround time of about 1 hour and doesn't require such extensive labor. Starship's hull tiles are designed with nearly uniform size and thickness across the entire spacecraft. Only about over 100 tiles have unique shapes for specific areas like the nose and corners. While this might slightly increase the spacecraft's overall weight, it offers significant benefits in production, maintenance, and repair. This uniformity allows for thorough automation in manufacturing and quality control processes, resulting in simplified construction, shortened production times, significantly reduced costs, and higher reliability. This design also offers a strategic advantage for Mars exploration missions. The crew can carry spare tiles, allowing them to quickly and efficiently replace any damaged ones. This repair capability ensures the spacecraft's integrity for the journey back to Earth, significantly enhancing mission safety and success. This is a prime example of how simple design can yield enormous benefits in space exploration, embodying the philosophy of less complexity, more efficiency in modern aerospace engineering. Moreover, from Starship's Flight 5 onwards, SpaceX has focused more on upgrading the quality of Starship's heat tiles. Indeed, the company developed a new tile of heat shield that is twice as strong, or hopefully half as likely to crack or come off. They also added the ablative layers beneath the primary tiles as an insurance policy. These secondary tiles are made from silicone and felt, meaning they self-cool by slowly disintegrating to expel heat. Some specifics on the ablative material SpaceX plans to use have not been made public. However, Elon Musk has said that this material is not good for reuse, but keeps the ship and its inhabitants safe in case the tiles fall off during or before re-entry. Fast forward to Flight 6, SpaceX continues to push even further with new secondary thermal protection materials, and this signs a non-stop evolution in Starbrick's development. In the future, Musk has an even more ambitious plan to build an entirely new supply chain for low-cost, high-volume, and yet high-reliability heat shield tiles. In conclusion, it's so great to see the firms belonging to the new space have tirelessly been working to foster the development of commercial space. Besides innovation, they are also clever in learning from the achievements of the old space. This promises to create a big bang in rocketry in the next years. After launching two important national science missions, including NASA's Psyche asteroid probe and Europa Clipper spacecraft, SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket is now entrusted with another high-profile NASA science mission. The agency announced today, November 25th, that it has picked the Falcon Heavy to loft Dragonfly, a $3.35 billion mission that will investigate the life-hosting potential of Saturn's huge moon Titan. SpaceX also confirmed on X that Falcon Heavy was selected by NASA to launch the Dragonfly mission to Saturn's moon Titan. The nuclear-powered rotorcraft will look for prebiotic chemical processes common on both Titan and on Earth before life developed, they added. John Edwards, Vice President of Falcon Launch Vehicles at SpaceX, expressed gratitude for being awarded the mission. On behalf of the Falcon team, it's an absolute honor to support NASA's Dragonfly mission to Titan. Such an incredibly cool and monumental science mission. It is a rotorcraft lander mission under NASA's New Frontiers program, designed to explore Saturn's moon Titan. The mission will sample materials and determine surface composition in different geologic settings, advancing our search for the building blocks of life. The firm fixed-price contract has a value of approximately $256.6 million, which includes launch services and other mission-related costs. If all goes according to plan, Falcon Heavy will launch the car-sized Dragonfly rotorcraft during a 3-week window in July 2028, from July 5, 2028 to July 25, 2028. The spacecraft will then spend 6 years making its way to Titan, the second largest moon in the solar system, after Jupiter's Ganymede. Titan's size isn't its only intriguing characteristic. The frigid satellite hosts seas and lakes of hydrocarbons, making it the only body beyond Earth known to host stable liquids on its surface. In addition, organic compounds, the carbon-containing building blocks of life as we know it, are common worldwide. Some scientists therefore think Titan may be capable of supporting life, perhaps on its alien surface or in its suspected subterranean ocean of liquid water. Dragonfly is designed to investigate this question and to shed light on a little-studied world more generally. The nuclear-powered rotorcraft will operate for about 2.5 Earth years on Titan's surface, flitting from place to place to get an in-depth look at a variety of landscapes. The launch mission is under the responsibility of NASA's Launch Services Program at the agency's Kennedy Space Center. All told, we know of up to 11 Falcon Heavy missions on contract with SpaceX. Most of them are firm contracts with NASA's Launch Services Program, an office that procures launch services for the agency's robotic space missions, matching payloads with commercial rockets. Notable on this list is the Europa Clipper, Earth's first mission to conduct a detailed science investigation of Jupiter's moon Europa. It is worth $5 billion, led by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to explore Jupiter's icy moon Europa, an ocean world that may harbor environments conducive to life. Other missions that Falcon Heavy rockets flew were for the U.S. Space Force. For instance, in January 2023, the Space Force awarded SpaceX a $316 million contract to launch the USSF 67 mission using the Falcon Heavy rocket. This was SpaceX's first mission under the Pentagon's National Security Space Launch Phase 2 contract. Despite being overtaken by the power of NASA's Space Launch System moon rocket and SpaceX's Starship mega rocket, the Falcon Heavy is still the world's most powerful operational commercial rocket, capable of hauling nearly 64 metric tons of cargo into low Earth orbit a couple of hundred miles up, if SpaceX expended all 3 of the rocket's first-stage boosters. As a partly reusable rocket, Falcon Heavy can recover its 2 side boosters, but this eats into the rocket's payload capacity. This explains why in some special national missions, Falcon Heavy will switch to the expendable mode. For example, in the Europa Clipper mission, which needs a lot of energy to start it on its interplanetary trajectory to Jupiter. This will increase its price tag, but money is simply a way for the national agencies to count. You know, launch prices for NASA and military payloads run higher than SpaceX's base commercial price. Government satellites often require special handling, resulting in extra fees in some terms like engineering insight, unique cleanliness specifications, and in some cases, schedule priority over other commercial missions. Setting aside propellant to recover the two side boosters would reduce the Falcon Heavy's payload capacity. But SpaceX's heavy lift rocket is still superior to any other rocket currently in NASA's inventory, especially the SLS rocket. The most notable difference is price, which is the main motivation for the U.S. Space Agency to replace the SLS with the Falcon Heavy to launch Europa Clipper. Overall, the Falcon Heavy, which is reusable, unlike the SLS, is expected to save $2 billion when it launches the Clipper on its path to Jupiter. About half of that savings will come from avoiding a costly redesign. That redesign had to do with the vibrational load of the SLS system on launch. Known in the jargon as torsional load, the current iteration of the Clipper could not withstand those forces, according to a NASA inquest. To redesign the whole Clipper to make it compatible with the SLS's launch forces would have cost around $1 billion alone. Adding a single-use, expensive rocket to the mix adds another $1 billion to the launch costs. Another nail in the coffin was timeline. The SLS is inherently notorious for a series of delays and cost overruns. Development of the space launch system began in November 2011. It had a successful test flight in November 2022, 6 years after its first targeting a debut launch in late 2016. The SLS mega rocket is intended to return humans to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program, but increases in costs related to contracts awarded to Aerojet Rocketdyne and Northrop Grumman for SLS's propulsion systems could threaten that objective. Altogether, the 4 contracts for the rocket's booster and engine were initially projected to cost $7 billion over a span of 14 years, but are now projected to cost at least $13.1 billion over nearly 25 years, as estimated in May 2023. Falcon Heavy, on the other hand, started development after the SLS and has already proved flight-worthy, having 11 successful flights to date and a number of ongoing launch contracts. It was unclear, given the commitment the SLS program had made to Artemis and its repeated delays, whether or not the system would even be ready for other science missions has been called into question as well. New rockets, like Blue Origin's New Glenn, will likely come closer to Falcon Heavy's lift capability, but the launcher is unproven. United Launch Alliance's Vulcan Centaur has already completed 2 certification missions this year, and it remains on track for certification. The Space Force is now preparing for a likely 2025 Vulcan national security launch debut instead of the originally planned 2024 launches. By the time Vulcan is regularly serving on military missions, SpaceX's secret weapon, Starship, may already be online by then. As the most promising rocket engineering project of the century, Starship is designed specifically for bold ambitions, typically Mars colonization. At its most basic, Starship is a super heavy lift rocket that can transport large payloads to space. The Starship is the second stage of a 2-stage vehicle to do just that. Starship is the crucial part with all the cargo and, eventually, crew inside, but it's stacked on a first stage known as Super Heavy. Super Heavy is necessary to get the spacecraft out of Earth's gravity well with enough fuel to get where it's going. Starship can then travel to its destination, like Mars, and then launch itself back into space without Super Heavy, thanks to the lower gravity. Starship is intended to be fully reusable, but only the Super Heavy portion has proven that so far. Starship, without Super Heavy, is 50 meters tall and has a diameter of 9 meters. Of course, along with the vehicle's evolution, those parameters will increase significantly. That makes it significantly roomier than the Falcon 9, which is 3.7 meters in diameter. Dragon, which corresponds to the Starship part of Starship, is 6.1 meters tall. Starship sports 6 3D printed Raptor engines, giving it 12,300 kilonewtons of maximum thrust. 3 of the engines are designed for sea-level use, and the other 3 are for use in a vacuum. They use subcooled liquid methane and liquid oxygen propellant. Meanwhile, Super Heavy has a whopping 33 Raptor engines. These are all sea-level variants, giving the stacked rocket a total liftoff thrust of 73.5 meganewtons. Meanwhile, NASA's Space Launch System has 39 meganewtons of thrust. When stacked together, Starship and Super Heavy clock in at 120 meters, making it the largest rocket ever built. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has stated that SpaceX aims to recover the Super Heavy within an hour. To make it possible, the company has built a very unique and special structure, namely Mechazilla. Mechazilla is the nickname for SpaceX's 120-meter-tall rocket-catching structure at its Starbase facility in South Texas. It's equipped with 2 large mechanical arms, known as chopsticks, that catch the Super Heavy booster in midair as it returns from space. Mechazilla is a major advancement in reusable rocket technology. It's more efficient and reusable than traditional landing techniques, and it can significantly reduce launch costs. SpaceX's goal is to use Mechazilla and the Super Heavy booster to avoid building new rockets for each launch. This would allow SpaceX to relaunch Super Heavy rocket within an hour of its return. This technology was proven in Starship Flight 5, which took place in mid-October when the Super Heavy booster was caught by the launch pad's mechanical arms, affectionately referred to as chopsticks, just 7 minutes after liftoff from Boca Chica, Texas. This achievement marks the first time SpaceX has caught a booster directly on its launch pad, rather than relying on ocean platforms for recovery. Musk shared his excitement on social media, stating, "Just inspected the Starship booster, which the arms have now placed back in its launch mount. Looks great." He noted that while some outer engine nozzles were warped from heating, and there were minor issues, these were easily addressable. The booster's quick return is crucial for SpaceX's goal of achieving rapid reflight capabilities, ideally within an hour after liftoff. The process involves reloading the propellant and positioning a Starship atop the booster. SpaceX's innovative recovery technique is expected to revolutionize space travel by significantly reducing turnaround times between flights. The mission also involved sending the Starship upper stage on a suborbital trajectory, with plans for a controlled splashdown in the Indian Ocean approximately 65 minutes post-launch. And that just about wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.